Hey, look, Millicent, I'm remembering to share a screen again. Okay, so, the first thing that we did was just talk about the arc, the idea of bringing the pixie dust in some sort of fashion, whatever you're doing, right? And then doing the timing and then testing it. Remember, we drew our orb. And this is just a refresher. And then at that point, you can say, oh, I like this. And in an exploded view of that orb, you could say you were going to do some, just a really quick circle. You were going to paint it a couple of different colors. I don't think that if you did a whole bunch of pixie dust inside it that was just kind of twinkling, that you would ever see it because of the motion of the orb itself, of the little, whatever you want to call it. It's not really an orb. It's just the pixie dust generator. And then you could paint it different colors. You could put a hot center in it. A couple of students in the past have painted an area outside here, and in Toon Boom, they gave this a very big glow, right? So there's lots of things you can do with this, and it's really up to you. You go out on the internet and you see what does this magical thing look like, and it can be medium, it can be really, really small so that it's magic. It can be anything. And so I think that what you've got is kind of like this potato shape, which is aesthetically questionable. And then remember that when you take this and you copy and paste it all along the timeline with your timing set, and you do that very quickly. And I thought I made the point when we first did this in week 1, was that you do this so that you know that there's a variety of speed, that the thing comes in at a regular rate. There's an 8, 12, or 16 frame delay at the end, at the beginning of your shot, so that your eye can register to whatever it is. It's up to you whether you wanted to put like a cityscape in the background, or you were out in the forest and there was a glen, and you were going to do this with black, and then this stuff was just going to be dark blue so that the pixie dust reads, that's all up to you. But then as soon as you've got this timing set and you approve your own timing or whatever, then you do this trail behind it. Then behind every direction, let's say that the direction of the pixie dust is here, with your brush in Toon Boom, you pick like a charcoal brush, you give yourself the area where the pixie dust was going to be on the screen. And whatever it is, you just kind of pick yourself a field. And remember, I told you that the trick is to make it look like it's just a field. It's just like you were taking a 4B pencil on its side and brushing it just very gently so that you got an idea that the pixie dust will be emanating from the orb. And this is just a place where all the pixie dust is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. And so you do this first so that you know that it's generating from the core of the center, and then there's gravity. It's falling in the air just very slowly, and we did that, and we did that by the end of day 1. And so by the end of day 1, you get the real good feeling of how that is going to work for you. Remember that the main error is that I don't want this to look like a flag or a piece of cloth that's being dragged behind. It should be magic. And that's why we do these turnovers, because up here, the pixie dust is going to look like this. Like that little shape right there is going to have a look like that to it. When it comes over here, it's going to look like this again. It's going to have like it's dragging behind it. And then for any particular shot, like let's say right here, that this field is going to have all of this stuff that's new, but all of this stuff will have pixie dust from all of these frames that are falling behind it. And then, and the trick is just to make sure that this field that you're drawing looks like it's the field where the pixie dust should be, right? And then that takes a bunch of time. And I told you, just get it right, put your music on and just go, go, go. And then we talked about the exploding 5-point, 3-point, 6-point stars. We talked about the key over here about using all kinds of different shapes, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that what you've got, I don't think this is working. I think that you've got like 1, 2, 3 little bits from your brush, but you're not following my direction of the direction of the orb and thinking of where the pixie dust is going to be. You're drawing with this charcoal brush to give yourself an indication of where all those sparkles are going to be, where all that dust is going to be. So my take is that you could just use to maybe just go back and turn that layer off and do a new field layer underneath it. And go back and look at those recordings that are on YouTube if you need to. But yeah, this doesn't look like pixie dust. Give it another go. I'll still give you time to do that. Okay.
All right.
So I won't grade this one yet. It was due today, but I won't grade it yet. I'll put an open box. Thank you, Ryan. And Minjing.
Yes.
Did I say that right? Minjung.
Yes, Minjung.
Minjung. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so this is a pretty good start here. It looks like you said you're working in Procreate.
Yes, right.
So, can you control opacities of layers and blur and glow and all that like you can in Toon Boom?
Yes.
So I think that, let's just watch it one more time. I think that you have got the ribbon behind. You've definitely got the ribbon behind it. And I think that it's a good start. But let me give you some suggestions for how to make it awesome. Because it needs some stuff. All right, so let's pick a frame. This is a good one. And now Zoom is misbehaving. Come on, Zoom. Zoom, there we go. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna stay with my red color. All right, so you need a couple of things here. Minjung, I think that what you wanna do is take this layer here and turn the opacity down so that it's maybe half of what it is right now. It's okay, you don't have to erase any of it, but you definitely need to add some more spread.
Okay.
And don't add the spread so that it looks like it's still a piece of fabric, because this does look like a piece of fabric right now. But if you just give yourself some variation, some randomness to the, so you know, Zoom does not have a brush tool, right? It's just got the pencil. And so I'm just kind of emulating the extra little bit, because you don't have anything falling. You have the central core of this brush area just kind of trailing behind it, and this central core right here is stuck on the arc. So you need to get the stuff falling. And so add in another layer where all of the area where you're going to be drawing the pixie dust is actually falling. All right, so that's one thing. That's the first thing. Then the second thing that you need to do, and you probably could guess, and you already know what this is then on top of that, Then you add the pixie dust. Then you add the little sparkles. Then you add all the hundreds of little dots that go behind it. And then you approve that. So that's the second thing, is to add those little dots. And then you go back in and then you add your exploding stars, or you add your circles, right? You add all the little bits that make it magic. You know, big circles, you draw your key over here. And then you look at it and you think about it. What else does this need? I don't think that I did this last week, but you know, I'll put 4 here as an other, is that on the progression of a 5-point star that explodes, right? So you have an exploding 5-point star. And then maybe once in the whole clip, that as soon as the 5-point star reaches this kind of shape, then each one of these becomes another exploding star. You know, I didn't talk about that last week. It just makes it a little bit more complicated, but it makes it actually really cool. So this could be the other. All the stuff in here that is the other, the exploding stars, the extra exploding stars, the spirals. There's all kinds of things can happen in here. So I think you need that. I think that the timing of the orb itself and the arc is okay, and your brushwork is okay. Do you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So you're in luck. I think that the idea here is that you're just like on the first step still. So once again, I think that you can see that it's too tight. That brushwork is too tight. So spread it out, take the opacity down, put a blur on it or something, and now you got to go and do your pixie dust. Okay?
Okay,
All right. Thank you, Minjung.
thank you.
Let me refresh my screen. Dan. Okay, this looks really good. Are you happy with it?
Actually not really, because I think it's like it kind of lack the feeling of the pixie dust, I guess.
I didn't understand your words, but
Oh, so it's like
I
so
think,
it's like
go ahead.
yeah, I feel like it needs some more little white dots.
Well, let's just pick a particular frame. And so this looks really good right there. And I think that what you just need to do is add to it a little bit. I don't think you need to fix, quote unquote, fix anything. Sorry, I'm doing 3 things at once here. Okay. So you're using Toon Boom. So
Yeah.
how are you doing the little circles right here?
So I think it has a brush.
Okay.
Yeah, and I use my brush.
Okay.
So it's not like a dot. The dot is the little green one.
Okay. Okay, good. So here's my suggestions. Here's my critique for you. And I'm waiting for Toon Boom, or I'm waiting for Zoom to wake up. Come on, Zoom. It's got like a mind of its own. It does it when it wants to, and it just pisses me off. All right. So I think what you've got is a really great start. Let's just take this as the generation point, the orb. And so I think that it's just a little short. You know, if you look at this in terms of scale, this is good. All this stuff right here is good, but I think that you need to get this stuff to trail behind it maybe twice or 3 times longer. So I think you just have to add. So whatever you did here, this little blue brush right here, just get it to add more behind it, and remember that it should be falling, right?
Yeah.
So that's the magic part that's missing, is that the stuff that was from the timeline, again, 12 or 16 frames behind it, is falling and dissipating at the same time. Because I think all of this stuff is working, it just needs to be longer.
Okay.
Because I think the energy of the pixie dust itself it's intense. It's like, whoa, you know, we're spitting out this electrical magic here. And so that will just help improve it. The color is great. The style is great. I think you just need to extend the tail longer. So that's the first thing, is to extend the tail longer and make sure that it's falling. Make sure that it's falling. You've got these little stars, which are great. So you just have to add to it. You don't have to erase anything, just add to it.
Okay.
And you can see just by the little sketch I did right there that will improve it greatly. Because if you can take a screenshot of that if you want. Got it?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so then you can just imagine that the tail is 3 times longer and falling, that what you've got is just really great. So that's all you need. You know, you've only got 3 seconds, so maybe a total of 72 frames. Remember to make sure that you don't start on the first frame, because this little guy is hanging out right here. See him right there?
Yeah.
Give yourself 16 frames of nothing before before this first frame of magic starts happening. That was like the very first thing we did. You skipped that. There should be 16 frames of nothing. And remember that in animation, a beat is 8 frames. Animators animate in beats. So I say 16 because that's 2 beats, right?
Yeah.
So always remember that as an animator, we animate in beats. We break the second down into 3 beats, and that's 8 frames a piece. Okay.
Okay.
Let me refresh this. All right, so I will look for an extra bit of that next week, Dan.
Oh yeah, sure.
There's no ongoing gradebook at the moment. The school is switching to a new OLS over the summer and then ongoing. And I believe at that point, the instructors can plug in day grades, right? They can just say, hey, this was an assignment, it's worth this amount of points. But we can't do that in the OLS as we've got it now. But this is good, but it needs work. All right. Ryan, oh, okay, never mind. All right, so let me go back to the top. And we've got some flags. All right, so just before I do this, remember that we are going to do fire and smoke, and the skills inside this flag translate to both of those immediately. So this is not part of our outline. So this is due today. All right, Joseph. Oh, let me loop this. All right, so it could be that the Zoom is just, or the OLS is not really good at looping it. But I can tell that your wave is working. I can tell that you have the corners of the flag that are looping on their arc correctly. The crease is working correctly. This looks fine.
Thank you.
It looks okay on your computer?
Yeah, it loops a bit better on mine. I think it's the player.
Remember, I said it was 8 drawings on 2s, right? So it's a
Yeah, it's a
total of
16
16 frames. And it's looping very smoothly, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's good. I'll accept that one.
Thank you.
Ryan.
I forgot about the crease. It's
Hold on a second. OLS is misbehaving. All right, I can't see it. It's too small and you made it red. Ryan,
yeah.
I can see it. Oh, hold on. Let me turn the loop on. All right, so it's doing the same thing where there's a playback pause in the loop. All right, so you created the error that Mr. Billy hates the most. Ryan?
Mhm.
Do you see that the corners of the flag are technically stuck in 3D space? You know, it's hard to see because you did it red on black, but I can see that the corners of the flag are not flapping around in the wind too much. You know, ad nauseum, I talked about this last week, where there's a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind. So how could it possibly be that the corners of the flag are stuck in 3D space? And I talked about the going at this thing with a arc. Come on, Zoom. An arc on the corner. So you've got, well, for one thing, I think you want to really study this. So make your flag big and visible so we can see it. Draw it visible so we can see it. So what are you working in?
Boom boom.
So, you know, I can review this for you today, but there's a thing where you can reposition all drawings. So you can make this bigger. Just take what you've got and make it bigger. But remember, we did this. We talked about using the moving hold on this area, which it looks like you did, because we talked about using the moving hold for this line and the grommets. That's fine. It looks like your wave might be working okay. It's hard to see because it's so small, but I'm suspect there's like an error in the wave. I can see there's a little error. So remember that if this is your first frame, that what you're going for is that your last frame actually looks kind of like this. And that the arc of motion is that, oops, hold on. That this little node is going to move from here on an arc of motion out this way. So this is the upper node, and that node is going to be right here. Right, so the upper node here works here, and so the extension of the green line is going to be like this. So this is your first keyframe, and this is your first keyframe. This is your first keyframe, and this is your first keyframe, right? Do you remember all this?
Yeah.
There is more behind it too, where the arc of motion has the upper part and the bottom part to it. So that the bottom of the wave has this node right here, was actually coming from this position. And those are keyframes. And the bottom of this node was here, coming from this position. But we don't see this stuff, and we don't see this stuff because the flag is just limited. And so this is your first keyframe. This technically is like your last keyframe. And then you go back in there and you figure out what your timing is. So this is the midpoint. This is your breakdown. And then this is a quarter of the motion. And then you do the little eighths. So when you do this one right here, this node was moving from here to here. And so it's halfway. And then remember that you've got to connect it to the grommet. And then stop, because you don't know where it's going to go out here quite yet. You do the same thing on the bottom. So on the bottom, your wave is going to be right here. And you just in between and you go right to the grommet. And then you go like this and you stop and you say, okay, what's going on? So then you put in a arc of motion for the corner of the flag here, which I don't like. So I'm going to just do this one like this. And this was different from last week because I think I did mine vertically, but it's fine. You can do this any way you want. The corner of the flag here might just be going this way. And they can go different ways. So the orientation of these two arcs is like this. And this direction here is going to go counterclockwise like this. And this one's going to go this way. And it can do that. All right, so then you plot out your points on these arcs here for the corner. And then you go back in and you figure out what your corner looked like. And I realized I drew that on the wrong layer, but then you draw the corner like that. So yeah, you forgot the crease, but you need to make all these adjustments too. And I would highly recommend, do you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah.
So I would recommend this because it will help you understand how to do your smoke and your fire. And those are the two bigger components of the special effects class here.
Mhm.
Okay, got the screen grab?
Yeah.
Okay. Keeps jumping at the bottom. All right, so you got some catching up to do, Mr. Ryan. All right, Rob. Okay, this is great. And you've got 2 foldovers, which is excellent. And it looks great. We didn't even talk about how to do this last week, but you figured it out. It looks great. And yeah, you're here, right, Rob? Rob. Yep, so this looks great. Okay. Refresh. All right, Millicent, you're still working on your flag? Yeah, you sent me the note.
Yes.
Okay, Min Jung working on your flag. Dan working on your flag. Javon. All right. Check the chat. Okay. All right, so get caught up. We're gonna put some steam on the fire right here, right now. All right, so let's check the OLS here just for a second. Now remember, we do go out of order as such, and then we get caught up. So today they want us working on smoke, but we're gonna do fire first. Okay. All right, am I sharing my screen properly? I clicked on some stuff too fast. It's okay? Okay. All right, so we're gonna do fire right now. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to remind you about. So this is just gonna be the file name, short file names, no spaces, as short as possible. Billy B _ capital F for fire _ version 1. I don't need it to be 1920 by 1080. I'm just gonna pick the 1280 by 720. I'm gonna create the shot. Just gonna think about it for a second, like it always does. And here we go. All right, so just as always, remember that this is new to Toon Boom, is that we create, and I'm doing this intentionally, that this drawing layer is selected as opposed to deselected. So it's selected, but this was new, that I'm gonna just put a color card in here, and it does not get nested under the drawing layer. You don't want that, but they recoded this so that the color card just lives in its own space right there. And I think that it's crazy because in order to render anything out of Toon Boom, you have to have this color card layer. So by default, this should already be there. They should change this so that the default is that it comes in with a drawing layer and a color card, and we don't even have to waste that moment even talking about it. All right, we're gonna need this drawing layer to be a background. So I'm just gonna call it a BG, and remember all of the stuff applies. We're gonna need another layer just for our layout. We're gonna need another layer. Oh, I did layout 1 and layout 2. So this one is just gonna be our rough layer, so I'll just call that R. And before I even start thinking about my composition, I wanna remind you that now is the perfect time to start talking about this. Your fire more than likely should live inside your volcano project, which is coming up. And so we do this in Toon Boom for a couple of reasons. So Rob, I see that you just came back in. You got dropped and you came back in.
Recording in progress.
So your flag looked good, Rob. It looked fine. It looked really great.
Oh, there it is. My video cover. That's why. I was like, why is my video working?
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, we didn't even talk about how to do that fold over thing, and so you knocked it out of the park. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of looking at flags.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just reminding everyone to start thinking about doing your thumbnails for your volcano project. When you see the weekly, sorry, rubbing my eyes. When you see the weekly Zoom recordings on YouTube, you can go start looking and seeing what past effects classes have done for their volcano and final projects, and getting a real good feeling for what you would like to do. And so when you're working in Toon Boom, there's a really good advantage of being able to move things around and move all drawings on a singular layer all by themselves. So in here, you'll be able to copy and paste the fire anywhere you want within the shot. And it gets complicated as you start thinking, oh boy, on my volcano, I want to have a fire coming out of the side of the mountain where a tree is on fire, or that there's a fire up close where a fallen tree might be. And you can have fire in a number of different places in that composition. But we're just going to put our fire here, and we're going to do the same thing that we always do. And we're going to go back and look and see what the Pinterest thing looked like for our effects board. And I just wanted to double check. I didn't do fire last week, right?
Correct.
Fire's new to all of you. Okay. All right, so let's just take a look and study some of the fire shapes. I think this little thing right here is kind of interesting. I pinned it last week where I'm looking at this one where my mouse is, right? Electricity, there's an orb, there's fire, and then the fire goes into water and a water splash, and then a little sprout grows. This is something to think about for yourself, either as a animation student or as a game student. This could qualify as kind of a intermediary piece. Something that you might want to do is to combine those effects for your reel. So just keep that in mind, that the way I have it planned is one thing, but you can do some other things with it as well. So I like this little volcano here. I think it was new to me that you've got the eruption happening in the background. You've got lava flowing here, and we'll talk about that in the next couple of weeks. You've got fire. In this lava here, you can do little lava bubbles. And then there'll be lightning in here. So this is an interesting little composition. I thought this was cool. Someone did a little water splash out of wood. This looks like a water splash, but it's actually fire. And when we do our smoke starting next week, there's some really great smoke examples here, but they would be crazy. It would be insane to try to animate this amount of smoke in a week. Well, we're going to really kind of limit our smoke to, again, 8 drawings, but then we put the 8 drawings on 4s, and then we realize that the 8 drawings on 4s, which is 32 frames, is still a little bit fast for our smoke. And we take the 8 drawings and put it on 8s, and then I'll show you how to do in-betweens, and we get the smoke to cycle on 64 frames. All right, so this is from the Iron Giant. You know, there's some really great effects in the Iron Giant. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. When we do our tornado, if you even think about doing something like this, I'll dress like you and follow you around, because this is just beautiful, but it's way too crazy. It would take you months, a month and a half to animate this stuff in a cycle and working. All right, so we're looking at fire. I like this little pin right here because it's got some really crazy cool shapes in there. And again, I think that the director of the game department put this class in place because he was worried that all the procedural fires in Unix and in Unity looked like they were just procedural. And he was looking as a 2D animator to just make sure that we were trying to make sure that, yeah, it's procedural fire, but we are looking for really great shapes in there and really tweaking those settings. And I like this. So there's some really great shapes in there. If I want to, I could just open this in another tab and just kind of leave it sit there and just kind of see what else comes up behind it. You know, there's some decent shapes in there. All right, so we'll leave that one sitting there, and then I'm gonna come down here. I like this one. I'm gonna just kind of right click on this one because we do want some of this cross vectors here. Yes, the wind, there's a breeze, and the explosion, the thing that is actually catching fire and burning, starts out big and it moves quick. It moves left and right, and then up and left. It can create its own little mini atmosphere. But you see these little vectors here, where if you really think about it, you can get this tiny little bit of motion in there, and it'll give you a really nice effect on your fire. This is a good one for when we get to our water. This is a good one when we get to our explosion, our bomb animation. Fire can be blue if you want. It doesn't always have to be red. There's some really great shapes in there. So I'm going to open this one and just look at it. You know, and I'm not looking at the keyframe because there's some problems with the keyframe here. If you can imagine what would happen with the keyframe animation here is that this fire would be pulsing. It would be like spit out the fire, spit out the fire, spit. It would be like pumping the fire instead of looping. It ends up looking like it's pumping. But I do like the shapes and the color. All right, let's find the one that I like the best. And the one that I like the best comes again from our John Hallis, Harold Whitaker. I'm sorry. Yeah, John Hallis, Harold Whitaker Timing from Animation book. It's that simple $25 book that just has really great exercises in it. And it's probably down here a little bit more because it's one of the first things I pinned. You know, this is always a good reminder. Always, this one right here is a good reminder about making sure that you're always thinking about a variety of shapes. You know, this is a flame, it's more of an icon, but this artist is saying, no, make it have more variety, bigger shapes, medium, really small shapes. Same thing with water, the same thing with anything you ever draw, anything you ever shop. Give yourself a variety of shapes. Don't just be that monotone visual artist. Give yourself lots of shapes to work with. All right, I know it's down here. I know it's down here. This is me reminding everyone that I'm a maniac when it comes to drawing trees, like for my storyboard class. There's lots of really wonderful ways to trees, and I hate it when people draw trees that look like broccoli. Okay, I know we're getting close here. And I don't like this one. It's a little too torch looking. It's a little bit too energetic. It takes a little bit more time to draw it. It can be done, but I think that what we were looking for is more of a campfire. And so when we get to the smoke, we're going to use this one as our primary example. When we get to the tornado, we're going to use this one as a primary example. But let us find the fire. And I'm already at the bottom. No, it's just refreshing. All right, so there's some good examples of lightning, good examples of shapes within the pixie dust. And this just reminds me that I think I posted the Cinderella pixie dust, which is the beginning of the pixie dust era. Peter Pan was not the first one. All right, come on, board. Where's my fire? Now this, I think this one is the one that I was looking for the other day. This one might be the one that shows you the, no, this is not the one. I'm going to put this one away. There's one of these that are on, someone posted where it starts out as a pencil test and then it moves. Oh, this one. No, that's not the one. All right, let me not be distracted here. We're looking for, but that's the one I was looking for right there, where it goes from the pencil pixie dust into the first color and then the final color. That one's really great. That one's awesome. All right. All right, so we like this. You know, there's some nice indication here about just a variety of cores of the fire. It's good, I like it, and I can tell we're getting close to our main pin. All right, so let's talk about this one. What we've got here is a candle. There can be tons of different kinds of fire. And a candle is very simple to animate. If you, this one actually has a little bit of wiggle in it, and then the flame of the candle gets extinguished. And then there's a little smoke trail that leads at the end of it. And that's one thing to think about. And in this example here, this artist is showing you how to extinguish that little ember. And the same thing goes with this one, just about how it moves to the right and to the left. It moves up on an arc. This one is the one that I'm looking for, because this one's from the John Hallis book. And you can see that there is timing lines right here where the fire is really energetic at the bottom, and it moves quick and then it slows down a little bit. You try to want to work in that concept of moving quickly and then a little bit slower, combined with the idea that there is a draft, that the main components of the fire can move left and to the right. There's also some good shapes in here, so I like this one. And again, this is just a really energetic candle. This is like a brush fire here, so this one's really good. Let's save this one and just put it over on the right, because I think that we're close. And again, we want this. You can see that I've pinned this one 2 or 3 different times. And I hate it when people posting things post stuff sideways, or that it gets displayed sideways, because this one's really good. Really wonderful shapes in there, but I hate that it's sideways. All right. We're going to use this one for our water. And I'm not seeing the fire that I'm looking for, so we might have to bypass it. Again, I think it's good to just have these shapes coming into our eyes, and we're at the bottom of the board. So let me just do the same thing. 2D animation fire, and always put in the drawing. Always put in the word drawing, because you're going to get something weird if you don't. You're going to get something 3D. So this is from the John Hallis book. Let me see if this is a clearer picture of it. That's good right there. Okay, so I know this is on the board somewhere. So we spent some time just doing a little bit of visual research. This is what I like. We've got 8 particular drawings here, and we've got little nodes, just like we did with the flag. And we can see that there's some really nice shapes in here. We can see just by the study of this that the fire is about the same height, right? It doesn't pulse. It doesn't push out. The shapes move up, and so you're following this little X right here. In drawing number 2, it moves up. In drawing number 3, it moves up and moves a little bit, and then it becomes this ember, and this ember, and this ember, and then it goes away. But look, it comes back. And so if we go backwards to drawing number 5, you can see that this little X has gone to drawing 6, drawing 7, drawing 8, and then looping back to drawing 1 again. And so that's a really great way to get just 8 drawings to loop correctly and to be a really good fire. So remember, we are looking for some sort of campfire. You can use the same technique for long bits of fire that are burning, like a brush fire or something like that. But remember, there are different kinds of fire and different colors of fire. This can be just a mount, the whole field is burning and it's creating a whole atmosphere by itself. But we like this one. Again, 2D animation fire drawing. So we're about ready to start. In Toon Boom, what we're going to look at here is just kind of thinking for a second. We're going to jump to this again, and we're going to say, where do I want my fire? We're going to look at the fire here in a medium camera, but in Toon Boom, you can reposition all drawings. So if you hold your mouse down on the main select tool, you can see reposition all drawings underneath it. We're not going to do that yet because there's nothing to reposition, but if you're gonna use this project for what would be your midterm for the volcano project, you can animate the fire, get it to work, get it to loop. You can even just copy and paste the loop from this. You need a PC to do this, not a Mac, but you copy and paste it from one project into another. 8 drawings. All right, so for this, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our layout. Let's give ourselves just a quick little background. So I think in the background, what I want is just something that's burning. This is going to be just the BG. We'll keep it the same, just BG. And this is not behaving, BG. And I want just some sort of rough color. Again, this color selector is just like the best I've ever seen in my whole life. All right, then we want, we're gonna need a fire color. So this one, we're just gonna call fire. And we'll start with just a red, just to start with. Let's see, we can also use a rough. So we're gonna give ourselves another one. And this one's just gonna be our fire. Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do is on the background layer, we're just gonna give ourselves something, again, with our composite shot. It's very low hanging fruit or easy to see that the thing that might be burning is a bush or a tree or a stump. So I don't recommend having a volcano that has like an actual campfire, because that would be weird. You could do that if you want. I don't know, you know, that maybe there were some people camping right there and they abandoned their campfire because the volcano went off and they just drove away. You can do whatever you want. But remember, I'm going to do a couple of things on this layout layer here. I'm going to just remind you that we have cinematic thirds to think about for focal points. We have a very center of the screen for focal points. We want to stay away from the edge in terms of 2 things. One is action safe and title safe. So action safe is the first one. You always want to keep all your action away from the edge of the screen, unless something is just going off the screen, that's fine. But anything that is a title or words or text should always be at least 2 fields in from the edge. And this just sets our field. Remember too that you can have a focal point anywhere you want. I think that when the cinema people start talking about teaching cinematic thirds, that they always hesitate, because dividing up your screen into equal thirds is a really good place to start, but just don't get hung up on it. That you do have a focal point that can be in the middle, and that you can have a focal point really anywhere you want. Just for our argument today, we do want to have some sort of direction for the fire. This fire here is just kind of moving straight up. But you can see in some of the other examples that there is a slight breeze that's pushing the fire one direction or another. So I think that this is a good area right here just to kind of start thinking about whatever's burning. So for us right now, what I'm going to do is just kind of give myself a downed tree. All right, so this is just a tree that's sitting there. I'm just kind of looking at, okay, so now my fire is going to be right here on the tree. And again, this is just my layout. And I want the fire to just kind of be burning the center of the tree here. We'll go back to this and kind of look at the shapes. fire has little holes in it. It has little flyaway shapes. You want to think about a couple of things when you're doing your layout. So I'm looking at just kind of defining some fire shapes. It's got a direction. But you also you want to have holes in the fire. You want to make sure that the contact of the fire, the thing that's burning, has a kind of a nice shape to it. But that it's eventually going to be a solid shape so that you can paint it. All right, so it's at this point where we can start looking at some other shapes. So, and again, I think that sometimes water has some really great shapes to it. You don't want these to be too repetitive. And I think that anything works. You don't have to kind of think about that this being a node that animates into this node at first. You can just kind of what does your fire look like? Make sure that your fire has some good shapes to it. Draw the embers in there. And remember that this is just your layout. All right, so that's what I've got right now, just from the beginning of my layout. And again, I'm using the BG color on the layout, so I'm going to rename this layout just to be consistent. And we're going to pause. So let us. All right, so let's continue. What we want to do here is we want to evaluate this layout. So it's not like I did it quickly, but I'm going to think about these little shapes. Again, what we're doing is we're just kind of getting the overall curves of the fire in and out. This is going to end up being a hole, and we want to make it awesome, but we also want to be able to do it just in 8 drawings. Our fire is kind of conforming to the 3-dimensional shape of this log. This little arc right here might be kind of funky. Let's change this one. I'm gonna just erase a little bit. Yeah, I want it to go this way. I want to curve around that way. Okay. Pulling from the other side. All right, got this nice little C shape right here. Curling around. Okay, that looks okay. There's probably a little bit too much air from our example. There are little pockets of air, but for here, this one might be just a little much. So I'm gonna play with this. And this one I'll probably make a little bigger. All right, so I'm tightening up these little pockets of air right here. They don't have to be like the most unattached things ever, but I think I wanted just a little bit more volume. Even this could probably use a little redirection. All right, then the other thing that I would like to just expound upon is that the motion of fire is moving upwards. So what happens is that you've got this like little pressure, that you've got this idea of the fires moving upwards. So you've got this kind of shape because the direction is pushing up. And so the fire is still trying to burn. It's still trying to go up. So I think it would be incorrect of you to try to draw this kind of shape repeatedly. I think that it can certainly happen, but you can see that I'm concentrating on getting this curve here working so that it looks like that it's having some resistance with the air itself. And if there's any true rule when you're doing special effects, it's that look at Mother Nature, look at what happens in real life in terms of whatever we're doing, smoke, fire, pixie dust is more like sparkles, like a sparkler. All right, so that's looking okay right there. I'm not convinced that this little trough of air right here is exactly how I want it. And that's my little tree right there. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to relook at our timing. And so when we see this little X right here, the node going up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and starting over again on 5, 6, 7, 8, and repeating on 1. We do have 8 frames. It will be on 2, so we're going to limit this to just 16 frames. Just a 16 frame cycle. And we're going to take the layout and hit F5. And we're going to go to the background, and we're going to just give ourselves a background color this time. And let's make our log just kind of brown. Let's take our layout layer and actually put a node on it. All right, node, right click, I'm sorry, just select, hit all, and then take things out to 25 pixels a piece going upwards. And so now, again, you can use your hand tool, the space bar, and we want the layout, oops, sorry, deselect layout up here, node. I just want a transparency node on the layout because I just want to see it just a little bit. It comes in at 50% transparency to begin with. Let's make it just a little higher. 65, 85, 88 is fine right now. All right, so on our background, and I think I want my background to be above the layout layer. And I'm just going to kind of give myself this log. I just want to place it there just so that we have a relative place, relative thing to think about. I'm just going to put one little line right there. All right, that's good enough just for right now. You can do whatever you want. Background, we'll just F5 it. Close this. Oops, close this. All right, on our rough layer. So now we need our fire. So I'm going to double click this and just make it R_fire so it matches the color we're using. And we'll probably use the word fire for the final cleanup, and we can change the name of that as we go. I'm gonna worry about something because I know that we use red and blue for before and after. So I'm gonna actually change this R fire to something like a purple so that we can actually see before and after when we're doing our in-betweens. All right, R fire, rough fire frame 1. Going, oops, I'm in the wrong place, hold on. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit. And let's now go back to, this one we've got in our eyes. This one's fine. Let's see if we can get some other wildfire shapes. You know, this one has got some procedural look to it. It's kind of cool. You know, this is mostly smoke. I like the organic water shape of this fire. This was interesting. This doesn't even look like fire, but it probably moves like fire. I think you're willing to try something like this if you really want. You know, that's interesting. Again, that's on the board. But let's see if we can get just some other fire shape, because we got most of it on our eyes right now. This one's close. Let's see if I got something here. So yeah, let's just stick with this one. All right, so you can see that there's really angular geometric shapes right there. This little part right here is good. So let's start looking at our actual, so we got the rough fire. And again, we're just going to use a rough line. I think that the thing to mention is that you get this first keyframe the way you want it, and then the other ones are gonna, the next keyframes are just gonna maybe be a little less defined, if you will. And that's okay, because you're working on, this is the keyframe coming from the layout. One thing that I could just kind of remind myself about is that, well, there's two things that come to mind immediately. First thing that comes to mind is that I'm looking for a variety of shapes. I'm looking for big, medium, small, very small shapes. Again, I'm thinking fire. I'm not thinking water. I think the danger would be is if you start thinking water, it'll end up, your shapes will end up definitely looking like water, whether you intended it or not. The other thing is that sometimes you're driving around and you see cars out in Modesto or Sonora, place where American Graffiti was shot, Francis Ford Coppola's American Graffiti. And you see those cars that have the painted flames on the side of it. And it makes me hopping mad, because those car flames, they're all like the same. They're all like the same weird curve. Here, let me show you one. So they all kind of look like that, right? I mean, they're cool for a car. This one's actually better. This is the same image, just flipped. But you can see that it's like there's a repetitive shape. You see this like little guitar pick shape, and it's just repeated over and over again. And it's like, it could be so much cooler. Like, look at this first one here. You can see the same little, it looks like water in reverse, right? But you can see that there's like the same kind of repetitive shapes. And you could certainly use that. You could certainly animate that. But I think that this is something that you don't want in your eyes. You definitely don't want that kind of thing in your eyes right there. Even this one, which looks cool, maybe that one is okay, but this one definitely, there's no, it would just be a wave, but this would just be a flag, you know? So the flag that we just finished has some purpose to it, but you want to make sure that this stuff has a fire look to it, the actual movement of fire rather than just a car decal. All right, so we're going to leave our rough right there. We're not going to have to worry about seeing any fire from the back side of this. So that is our rough fire 1. We're just going to go to frame 2. We're going to turn our onion skin on, and we're going to jump back to our layout mode just for a moment. And we're going to borrow the timing. Well, keep this in mind. We do want this left and right, and we do want these little eddies that are moving like that. But we want the general overall timing of 8 frames. This little bit is moving up about that far. See it? So I'm just looking at this little fire volume. So it's moving up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So let's just start on this one right here. And on our layout layer, let's just put our general overall timing. Let's put a different color on this. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with our flag, is we're going to just identify the node here. And we're going to identify the general overall arc of motion as up. Like that. And reminding ourselves that we can get some sort of left and right kind of motion in there, and some right to left crossover. And you don't have to worry about it too much. Even just a little bit works. And the timing. So we have, this is our first node. Again, we're on the layout layer, so we can actually kill this and when we need it. But it goes from very close to the thing that's being burned to the top of the fire in 8 frames. So on our arc of motion, somewhere up here, we can put this little node. We haven't even drawn it there yet, but that's okay. All right, so if we look at the timing lines right here, it says very carefully draw the base, the fire eddies. So you can see the timing is quicker and then ends. So instead of drawing our breakdown position here, let's move our breakdown position up just a little bit. And that makes a big difference. Even that little bit makes a big difference. So this is my keyframe, and this is my keyframe. And then once again, I'm just going to put the little dot with an underline, because the underline means breakdown. All right, so this drawing and this drawing are the same. So I'm going to circle this one. That's a key. This is the underline breakdown position. All right, so then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just pick the halfway position and the halfway position. I'm going to evaluate this just to make sure that it's moving quick, and then it slows down just a little bit. And then I'm going to get rid of this one because that was the, that's the true halfway position, but I don't want it in my eyes. All right, so now what I want is just a little dot for the quarter positions. And we can remind ourselves just a couple of things here, is that when we do this, when we put these little marks in here, what the most important thing is to go from this position into the position that we haven't seen yet. You know, up here, we could actually, we're on our layout layer, we could put like a little tiny ember just to remind ourselves that we need to draw that one in there. But that fire is very forgiving. That as long as you get the overall motion, the overall feel of the thing going upwards and not going backwards, that you'll be okay. It's actually fairly forgiving of an effect. All right, so the thing I'm drawing here are just kind of like arcs of motion for embers that we can put in there. And it makes sense, right? It's like, it might not be a huge volume of the fire, but there could be something like an ember that starts out here, goes on this track and goes up and left to the right again. Perfect. Well, let's get the main fire working first. All right, so once again, you know, what we're doing is we're trying to get this little volume right here into the upper position here. Now with the flag, what we had done, oh, sorry, let me go back to my rough fire color. What we had done was draw the breakdown position. And then we did an in between. And then that from our principles of animation sheet is animating pose to pose. So we were going from key to key and then doing the breakdown and then doing the in-betweens. This, because of the, oops, I don't want that. Because of the more organic nature and the free kind of fluidity of the fire itself, we're going to animate straight ahead. But we know that on this frame right here, so we're on 2s, we're on frame 3, we want to start, we want this little contact point here to be the same. But we know that we want it to move up about this far from our layout. So this arc right here is going to move like that. And this shape, this little U shape here, is going to come along with it. So what we can do, and I don't do this very often. Usually I do like the whole keyframe. Whatever, I mean, the fire here has only 8 drawings, so they all end up becoming keyframes. But let's just do this one a little differently. Let's just draw and animate one shape first, because we know the direction, we know where it's going. So let's just animate this little arc right here first. We'll go to frame 5. And now in frame 5, that little exterior arc should be about right here. And we know that we have to carry this kind of shape with it. But you can see that now there's a problem, because now that this has to come back and go back to the contact point. Now you don't want this to be too overly aggressive on the bottom here. It just should have like a moving hold kind of feel to it. Let's go to frame 7. And now we got to be in this position here. So that's my arc. So now the flag, right? See this little part right there? And then let's just bring that right back to the point. And let's get at least this part of the shape working. All right, now we've got a consideration to make about halfway. So this is our true key breakdown position, is that this arc is right here. But because of the nature of our layout, it's really going to break apart. This arc right here should move up and then animate back to the contact point on the log. Let's do the next one. All right, so this should animate up to here. And you can tell that we haven't really done the crossover bit, but that's fine, because fire is forgiving. Parts of it can move straight up, parts of it can move back and forth. All right, so let's continue. So now we're on this frame right here, and we're gonna just extinguish this a little bit. We're gonna make it a little smaller. Now what we're doing is getting that little arc to work. Go to the next frame, and remember too, in Toon Boom, as soon as you start drawing this, it fills in the in-between for you. So that was technically our last frame. So we're just going to take this and hit F5, or if you have it selected, you can just hit plus on the keyboard. If you have it selected, stop it. Toon Boom, stop it. If you have this selected, you can hit plus on the keyboard and extends the frame. And so on this first drawing here, we need to put this little ember. As you can see, that's where it was, right? All right, so now we can just take a look and see what just that one little bit looks like. And that's good timing, right? Okay, so we don't want too much of that in our mind's eye. All right, so now on this one, let's take our onion skin is really bright, but that's okay. As long as we know we're on frame 1 here, that we're drawing with this purple color, and I'm sorry, we're on frame 3, and frame 1 was red. So now let's do the same thing with this little curl, this little bit of the fire here that belonged to it. So let's get this, and remember, we're looking at this kind of over, hold on a second. On the layout, just remember that we're looking at this kind of timing. We're going from here to here to here. So every time we draw something, it's going to have that kind of timing to it. And you can see that this one's a little messed up. This one should be right about here. As long as you get that in these 8 drawings, it will be fine. All right, we're on drawing, I think we're on this drawing here. And so this little bit should move up about this far. And then you see that we're going to borrow this shape. And let's just do that. In Toon Boom, you just go to the next keyframe with the G key. And so now bring this up. And you don't want it to stay the same shape. So I'm going to get some air resistance on the top of this little pointy bit and just curl it over. Go to the next keyframe. And we're going to break this apart. So this is just going to be its own little thing. We're going to point it here, but we're going to break it apart. And we're just going to go to the next keyframe. And we're just going to just animate that up. And remember that the thing that is burning extinguishes itself. So in the next frame up here, and up here, and up here, then we're on the last frame. Should be about like that. So let's go to the next keyframe. This is our first keyframe, drawing number 1. We've got this. This is working. We can see what it looks like just for that little bit. All right, that's fine. So drawing number 3, frame number 3. Let's continue with this shape right here, this little strange little shape on drawing number 3. So again, that we don't want to copy and paste it. We're just going to make sure that this outside arc is going to move up about this far. And I don't want to keep that the same. I don't want this little hook the same. So I'm going to diminish that just a little bit. And I'm going to change the shape of it entirely so it looks like this. All right, let's just go to the next keyframe. So now I've got this outside arc. Up. Up. Diminishing. Breaking apart. Ember. And the last one, first keyframe. All right, now let's do, we're on drawing number 3, drawing number 2, frame number 3. Let's draw this little shape. So we have to get this little point, and it's going to already break away. So I'm going to make this little air hole next. You could draw them at the same time, but this little bit right here, let's just do this one. And this one's going to be significant. This one's going to break apart and become 2 parts. So just keep it in your mind's eye. It's becoming 2 of these shapes, and now it's becoming really repetitive, that we've got these little these little half moon shapes here. So let's go back and look at our example. I think that what we could very easily do is bring a sharper point to those 2 as we continue them up. And remember, we want to do it this way because if you do it this way, it'll make sure that it doesn't look like it's going backwards. So I'm going to go to this frame here and just hover my mouse right here. I know that these 2 shapes have to go up, and I'm just going to copy them like that. And I'm going to bring them into the next frame so that they don't go backwards. This one's off the screen. This one's off the screen. One more off the screen and off the screen. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so we're in a good place here. All right, drawing number 2, frame number 3, this hole. So now let's animate the hole. The hole is a little bit tricky because we want to make sure that this is paintable. So remember, it's organic. The fire can wiggle around. Holes can get bigger or smaller. So I'm just going to bring this up to here, and I'm going to connect it. What am I going to do here? I'm going to turn my onion skin off for just a moment. I don't think I want this to be too much of a sliver. So I'm going to bring my eraser in here for just a moment. And back to my pencil. All right, so I'm going to just kind of cheat this a little bit. Turn my onion skin back on. And I got like a little ribbon right there, which we'll have to contend with. We're going to do this right now. Go to the next keyframe. And that little ribbon right there is gonna, what my hand is telling me, that it becomes its own new little shape right here. So the hole has already kind of broken down and closing up already. So this is the hole. And go to the next keyframe. All right, so this is its own little shape. And let's go backwards, because we haven't drawn this shape right here, this little Loch Ness monster shape right here on this part. So this shape the red was a frame before, becomes this. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that this is not going to go backwards. So we're introducing a brand new shape right here. We're going to go back to drawing number 3 and see if we can get that shape right there to move into it. And it's not clear right now. What I'm going to do is just make a little mark right here, which is like a new hole. And I'm going to go backwards a frame, and I'm going to draw that hole here. And I'm going to go backwards to the first keyframe and draw just like a little bit here and test it to see if it works. Yeah, it's working. All right, so again, we're looking at this little Loch Ness monster shape right here. We're on drawing number 3, frame number 5. We're going to go to the next keyframe, and we've just drawn this. We've just drawn this. The frame before was red, so this little shoulder right here has to become its own little part too. Again, remember that we're looking at that overall timing right there. Now, if I draw this line here, right on top of the red, it'll stall. So I want to kind of just go like that maybe. And then and I know that I'm not going to get lucky. I know that I'm planning this so that it'll work fine. All right, so the red was before. This hole then is going to move up to about right here. And then we got to paint this. So let's bring this over. And this is probably the only little tricky part here, is getting this interior bit to work like you want it. Because the outside right side here is just going to be a little easier. Let's test it just to see if it's looking okay. It's moving correctly. We're on drawing number 3, frame number 5. This red hole is going up. Okay. Let's go back to drawing 1 and let's concentrate on now on this crossover flame part right here and this little rounded shape right there. Next drawing number 2, frame number 3. Let's make sure that this is connectable shape here. And it's going up about that far. Fire can expand. It can wiggle around. It's pretty forgiving. So, and we're doing a big volume of the fire on this drawing number 3. So this is frame 1, frame 1, frame 3, frame 1, frame 3, frame 5, drawing number 3, frame number 5. And because that was so energetic, let us give it a shape. This end up looking like an elf hat. It's kind of weird, but let's see if it works. All right, so now we need to get this. Imagine that this little bit right here was a sphere, and you can do this. I think that in the oh, I'm sorry, I drew that on the wrong layer. On the layout layer, one thing that you can do is kind of think to yourself, and I'm going to use a completely different color. I'm not going to name it just yet. I'm just going to give myself some strange little new color. We can name it later. That, and I'm on the layout layer. So there, think about this and this and this. Let's bring our transparency down a little bit as volumes. So this is a volume. It's like a 3-dimensional volume. I don't want these keyframes in there, but that's okay. And so when you think about these little 3-dimensional volumes, these little spheres of fire, that helps us with the correlation of what we were looking at in this mode. So you can see that now we're combining all kinds of things together in our thought process. We've got the volumes moving left and right and up, going a little bit slower, and trying to get these little eddies in there all at the same time. So that's what I'm thinking when I'm doing this. When I put these little spheres in here, that's an indication for you that that is what we're actually doing. So just keep that in mind. We're going to take our transparency back up to 80 something. And we're still on our rough fire. Let's go back to our rough fire color. And now we're supposed to be on drawing number 3, frame number 5. So this volume right here, has gone up into this position. So what we need to do is we need to like snip it. So this is a new shape for us. So it's like you're pulling clay apart, or you're pulling silly putty apart. And I don't want to stop there, because if I put too many of those words in your ears, you might end up getting a strange bit of animation. All right, so let's go backwards a frame, backwards a frame. So that works okay. All right, so now let's look at our arc. So this little arc is one we were talking about here, has to move up. So backwards a frame, upwards a frame, backwards, up. Good, okay. So now this little C-shape arc has to be represented. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just connect it back to the log. And so this little shape right here is an outside shape. It's an outside shape to the center of the fire. And in this drawing here, what we're going to do is we're going to give it its own little shape. So it's going to have its own little peel away part here. If you want, you can connect it just to start. And now let's take a look at this just in the loop. So it's starting. I mean, hopefully I'm not being too distracting for you with that. But now we're continuing around here. Let's just, on every keyframe, let's just kind of do a moving hold of these shapes right here. These shapes right here are not going to move around too much. So, and again, we started from the left and we went to the right, and now we're going back to the log. So let's just get a moving hold working on the little tendrils, the little fingers that are pulling the fire up from the log into the combustible fire. Let's just do that on every one of the keyframes. Let's turn our onion skin back on so we know that if we want to, we can wiggle it a little bit. And again, it's pretty forgiving. If you wiggle it a lot, it'll be okay. Remember, what you're looking for are big, medium, small, very small shapes. So we're just wiggling this. This is technically our moving hold. It's rough, but we're trying to make sure that we're going to be able to see what we were thinking in terms of shapes and arcs. You can even go backwards a frame and get this part, but I think I'm going to save that part to actually move around just a little bit more. So let's next frame. So this is going to move to the right, to the left. Next frame. You know, I like this little shape right here. It was a little accident. That's kind of cool. See that little upper shape? That's kind of neat right there. And we have two more drawings to play around with that one. All right, next frame. So this one is not technically a moving hold. We're going to bring that shape up and actually animate that one. And it's kind of interesting. We haven't drawn this keyframe yet. That's okay. All right, remember, we're still doing the moving hold. All right, and one more. I am getting this arc to cross up just a little bit and this one to move up just a little bit. the moving hold can be pretty energetic if you want. It's up to you. You can also just kind of do a traditional moving hold. All right, so now that when we play this back, what we're looking for is just this area, just that little area. So I think that it's pulsing too much. It looks to me like the fire is kind of going up and reaching down, going up and reaching down. So let's redirect this by making sure that on every single frame that we represent that the fire is starting from these places. So now let's concentrate on just making sure that there's no pulsing. And we're just gonna just do the same thing that we did before. We're gonna try to keep doing it the same pattern so that our hands have memory, and that we're gonna make, what we're trying to do is really limit that pulsing. So do the same order, left to right. That one's a big one right there. So the red is before, so that's what we were missing. So just fill in that red bit. And let's see how that fixed. Oh, we've got a lot of that fixed. There's a little bit of energy happening right here. That's fine. I don't like this bit right here. So let's concentrate on that one, this little area right here. Again, this is just the moving hold. And it was, for me, it was just a little too energetic right there. And one of the things that you can kind of consider, that's the big difference right there, is that this is the first frame, that's the last frame. So on the first frame, we need to extend this just a little bit. That's what was causing the problem right there. It was the jump between the last frame to the first frame. All right, so now let's see what it looks like. We might have fixed it. All right, so I think that's okay. It's not really catching my eye. And that's the whole trick right here, is that you want this thing to just kind of be interesting the whole time. You don't want any little bit of this to catch your eye. Like, for instance, if something was moving backwards. And a lot of times when I'm doing this kind of demo, I will intentionally do something incorrectly to show you how to fix it, but I'm not going to do that this time. All right, so let's work on, but this is drawing number 1, frame number 1, drawing number 2, frame number 3. Let's work on these little holes right here. From drawing 1, we have these little air pockets and they're not moving yet. So let's just do these 3 little bits all at the same time. Again, they're moving in my representation on my screen right now. They're moving about 1/2 inch. That one's already there. This one needs to go up. Next frame. I'm going to diminish this one because this becomes this hole and this just gets smaller. So on this one, oh, we need to draw this part too. So let's change our mind just for a little bit. This little hat, this little elf hat thing here needs to be animated next. So again, about 1/4 inch or so. I would start with this outside shape. Let's get it to move to the right. And then bring the air resistance around it. That little pocket has grown like that. And let's just do this one right now. All right, so up and a double curl. Ooh, now it's got like a little double curl. So we're gonna have to make sure that that's not going to be too over animated by just kind of breaking it apart. And on the next frame up here, it turns into an ember. This is the very last frame in the cycle. And so we go to the first frame in the cycle and just put that little ember right there. Let's test it. I think it could use a little bit more wiggle right here. And so I'm going to just change the direction of this one and go to the next keyframe and change this one outside. And then that's fine. All right, so now let's just do what we were doing just a moment ago with this shape right here. Again, we'll go back to this drawing right here, drawing number 3, frame number 5. And then this needs to go up. So I'm thinking about air resistance. I'm looking at this inside arc, and I'm looking at this little football shape that we just drew. And we're gonna connect that and bring it back to the log. And let's connect this one. So this was the air hole. And we're just gonna go like that and just connect this back. And that's weird. It looks like a little duck. So in this frame right here, let's make sure that we don't draw a duck, right? So let's get this to go. This little backwards C shape is going to go to this kind of shape and this kind of shape. And we're going to just let those two ride on each other. And this outside shape is going to become an ember already. And then this circular shape needs to animate up. So that whole thing right there just literally pulled away from the fire. All right, and then so we're on frame number 9 here, and there's a little bit to do with this arc right here. And this shape right there moving up. Let's just connect that. Make sure that doesn't go backwards by bringing this air pocket and this shape, this little weird shape right there. Just draw something. Draw something so that it moves upwards. And now this has got to connect to so that we can paint the fire eventually, but we don't want it to move backwards. So this shape, this little V shape is moved up here. And so we need to kind of go like this with it and just hope that it doesn't catch our eye. All right, this is moving up to this position. This shape is going to move up to here. And then you can kind of see that even in this demo that some of the shapes are becoming repetitive. And so again, I'll just go back to here. What kind of left and right shape? What kind of extra little C shape, compound curve shapes can I draw? This little V shape here has got to move up, but it's also got to connect. And if I make it go deep into the fire here, you know, that's a good shape right there, but I got to go backwards a frame to make sure that, oh, I'm sorry, I went forwards. Backwards a frame to make sure that that is going to animate correctly. So I'm going to draw like this little V shape, go backwards a keyframe, start that V shape, go forwards, forwards, and we're going to have to deal with this one, this little area right here in just a moment. All right, so this outside curve moves up. This inside curve moves up. And we're just going to connect it like that. Hopefully it's not going to be a disagreeable shape for us. All right, so we're going to eventually have to deal with this little volume right here. And we can do this little connection point to the log all at once. Okay, so now this frame, we haven't drawn very much. This red shape has moved up and gotten smaller. This little shape right here, we can kind of just keep that the same. This little shape right here can now become graphic. It can become more of a rectangle if you want. And it's at this point when you can kind of go back in, and as long as you've got the motion working correctly, you can start adding in more of your graphic look to it. All right, so this little V shape here has got to move up. This part has to move up. It's connecting to that. That's fine, it can do that. And then we're gonna take this little, I don't know, it looks like a backwards 3 shape, and we're just gonna continue it. And we're gonna take this outside shape up, and we're gonna cross those over. This shape right here is already up there, but this shape has to, let's keep this connected so that we don't lose track of it. This outside curve moves up to here and goes back into the main volume of the fire. This little C shape here moves up and connects. This little shape right here is already here. Just define it more. And now this little arc right here has to move up, connect it. And we've only got 2 more drawings to do. We only got 2 more main keyframe drawings to do, but we have this volume and this volume to think about. All right, so this shape right here, originally we planned it to be here. It's getting smaller. This shape is already there. All right, so this needs to be its own little thing. So the danger right here would be, I'm looking at this little shape right here. If we draw it right here, it'll stall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the clue from slowing down a little bit and just move this up just a little bit and break it away. And then this outside arc is going to go here. This inside arc is going to go there. We'll go back out. All right, and then this shape is going to go up. This shape right here is going to go up, breaking away. This V shape is going to go up, maintaining the general over shape of the fire. And now, so these last 2 drawings, remember that we got to animate from these last 2 drawings on this side back into the loop of the first drawing. So if you were asleep or paying attention, let's just do this part really carefully. This red volume here, these 2 red volumes need to go up. So let's just animate those up. This little shape right here, let's just bring it up and break it apart. This little outside ember. Okay, so those are represented. So this curve right here is going to go up. And we could just take a clue from what our hand did and leave it like that. It's just going to be an upside down curve for a moment. And then connect it to this part. So I know that might be a weird shape for fire, but that's okay. All right, and so in order to give us a clue about what's happening in this area, let's go backwards 2 keyframes, 3 keyframes, and add, let's go backward 4 keyframes. So let's add something right here. Let's add a hole right here. And this hole is going to be pretty energetic. All right, so the next keyframe, it's going to go up about this far. And about this far. And now we can really start looking at that hole, defining in this drawing is where we were about what shape to use. So we're going to use this outside shape. We're going to use this. We're thinking fire shapes. And now this shape is already accounted for. This shape here has got to go like this. And then this outside curve has to go up, connect back to the log, and it's got to connect here. So let's see what happens if we just do something like this. You know, it's looking kind of funky, but let's see if it works. And then the very last frame, we have to draw. This is the one that connects to the first frame. And so this outside curve and the first drawing are right on top of each other. So just half it and take this curve and move it up and just get this working. All right, this little shape has to move up, but the blue has to be accounted for. So this shape right here will become important for the hookup. This little curl over right here has got to move into this shape on the first frame. Remember, that's why we put the layout there. We're doing ourselves a favor. So from the red, we need to get this blue shape working like that. That'll work. This hole, this is a hole from the first frame, really should be backwards here. And let's go backwards a frame to see if we can animate that backwards. And we're not going to just make a hole, backwards a frame, draw the hole, backwards one more, start the hole, forwards, 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 and it will work just fine going into that first keyframe. All right, first keyframe, we see this blue shape here. We've got a little ember started on this frame, but we need to go backwards a frame and make sure that there's going to be something to animate into. So let's give ourselves another little hole forwards. This is the last keyframe, and we might be cheating this by making it move just a little slower, but that's okay. All right, so that is accounted for. On this drawing, this is the last drawing in the cycle. We want to make sure that all of the lines are going to animate from the red into the blue, from the red into the blue. So we definitely need this shape right here and then connect it to the log. This shape here needs to go up and it can break away, that's fine. Let's just count for these shapes. This little strange ember shape that we just drew here, these shapes going up, this shape, we just need to finish it, this little ember. All right, so now it's study the layout. We've got this shape right here, but the red is below it. So it's almost like in this keyframe, we need to draw the blue coming into the blue. So we need something coming into the blue that is this kind of shape, but we need the red to go upwards. We don't want the red to go backwards. Oops, sorry. So this red has to move up and there's space for it. So give yourself this C shape and then break it apart. Now, remember, we're going into the blue. So we've got this accounted for. There's a big volume here that hasn't been accounted for. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat drawing this shape because I can see that this little strange tooth shape is going to animate into this. This little fire shape is going to animate into that. This S shape will animate into that. That's fine, but we can connect it. And that's going to be a cheat because this is a hole. And then maybe we need to put a little hole on the left or the right side of it. And then as you kind of work your way into it, you realize that you've drawn a frame that kind of looks like fire and it will animate into that keyframe. All right, so let's see what it looks like. All right, so there's something funny happening on the right side where it looks like it's pushing, it's pulsing. And so let's just fix that right now. We're going to fix it manually. We're going to take our onion skin off and we're just going to look at this frame by frame. So I'm using my advancing the keyframe. Oh, that's what's missing right there. So on the very second drawing, this shape is missing. So we need to account for that. And going forward, just animate it straight ahead. So now it's just going to move to the right and go up. All right, so let's see what that little fix. So even with that, just that one little shape, ladies and gentlemen, that just this one shape right here that we just drew, this little Hershey's Kiss shape, we got the thing to make it look like it was not moving backwards. There's a shape missing here. This is our second drawing. So this is our first drawing, this is our second drawing. This shape is missing. So even with just these two little shapes here, and this one's missing too. And we didn't see that until we took our onion skin off. Let's go to the next keyframe. So get that one to go up. This one to go up and break apart. And then continue it. Oops. Yeah, that's, so this shape right here on onion skin. This shape right here, the red one. Let's just do this correctly. This has to move up. These two bits have to move up and continue. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so those little shapes right there that we drew just a second ago made sure that it didn't look like it was pulsing or pushing upwards. Let's look at this frame by frame and see if we missed anything else. There's something missing in the crossover. So this is our last frame. These two bits, at least these two bits right here, are not present on the first keyframe. So go back to the first keyframe. Actually, what we can do is we can cheat this by going to the layout and just kind of, we're on the layout layer right now. I'm just going to draw these really lightly so we know where they were. Let's go back to the very first drawing and let's get those to move upwards because those were not represented, and continue them up. Let's turn our onion skin back on. Continue them up at least a couple more drawings. All right. So what we did there is we're correcting to make sure that anything is not moving backwards. And that also tells me that on these frames right here that I have to get rid of these bits because they're on the wrong layer. Oh, I drew them on the background layer instead of the layout layer. So we definitely want to make sure that we don't make a mistake like that. All right, let's make sure so there's a couple of, on the background layer, these need to go away. Stop it. All right, so now what I want to do is one more thing. Let's just look at this one more time. Everything's working good. So now what I want to do is I want to work on some embers. And we have just enough time to pull this off. Let's make sure nothing's moving backwards. There is one thing in here or right here where they're sticking. If you can see the playback and zoom correctly, it looks like they're sticking. And that little correction thing that we did with the V in the middle definitely looks like it's pulsing or pushing upwards. It's something that you kind of just have to work with. But let's do a couple of things. Let's finish this. Let's finish this connection to the log right here, keyframe by keyframe. Oops, I'm erasing. Pencil. All right, so let's define this just a little bit more. Next keyframe. This is just a moving hold. but we want the moving hold to be in the right place. Moving hold. So get that wiggle, moving hold, moving hold. All right, this is our first keyframe. So let's test the moving hold. I think it's fine. So now let's address this little V shape here that looked like it was pulsing. So with the onion skin off, we're looking at this area right here, going keyframe to keyframe. It's moving up. So let's bring this down. Let's just cheat this and go back to the first keyframe. And you can see that it's just pulling, right? It's like it's pulling from the log. So let's just keep our mouse right there. And let's make sure that this is what's causing the pulse right here in the third drawing, is that this little area right here was not finished yet. So in the fourth drawing, let's make sure that it's in the same place. Fifth drawing, let's make sure that it's in the same place. Sixth drawing, let's just pull it all the way back down. And even on this one, let's get a shape right here that's just kind of indicative of a new air hole. And then let's just cheat it and cheat it again. That's the first drawing. So let's see if that little contact point to the log fixes that pulsing. And indeed, look, it did. So now it doesn't look like it's pulsing as much, right? Okay, so now let's add in some of this stuff where it looks like it crosses over. And we'll do that very simply with just a shape that is in front of the fire. So right now we've got our volumetric fire. We've got shapes that we can definitely paint. But now let's think just about little embers that are crossing over. Everything here is moving correctly. You know, I can start really defining these shapes and going keyframe to keyframe and make sure that there works. But I like this little geometry that was working here. So let's start in the middle. Let's start on drawing number 4, drawing frame number 7. And let's draw a shape that's right here because we need it. And let's just give ourselves this little horn shape right here. It's not a hole. This is going to be something that you would paint. You could do this on a separate level if you want. It doesn't matter. But this one's going to go up and to the right and then back up to the left again. So here, oh look, there's a space for it. And so now we're going to just change the shape entirely. We're going to continue it moving to the right. And then on this frame, we're going to get it to move to the left and continue moving to the left, continue moving to the left, up to the left, now to the right, and to the right some more. And I'm just animating straight ahead. Let's see what that looks like. So it's there, it's not going backwards, that's good. So on the first keyframe, let's do another one over here. Let's take this little shape. And just if you wanted to remind yourself that this is not a hole, you could like put like a little X in it just to remind yourself. Go to the next keyframe, we're on the very first drawing. And then again, you could just put like a little X just to remind yourself. Let's see where it was right here. So we want to put it right here, X. And then here, we're going to bring it to the left, X. And here, oh, let's see, we don't have a space for it. We're just going to put it right on top of this one, X and X. It's getting smaller, X and smaller. And this one's going to continue to the left. So it was here, it's moving up to the left. And it's a crappy shape. We'll have to fix it in a minute. All right, let's see if we can see it. All right, it's not going backwards, but we don't see that little crossover. So let's see if we can get one or two shapes to really go from the left to the right or to the right to the left. What do we got? We've got a space. Let's just look at the, without drawing for a second, let's see what the shapes we've got. Let's see what space we've got. On our very first keyframe, we have this shape right here that's not doing anything yet. So let's bring that one up. I don't like that. Hold on. Let's bring it up. Oops, hold on. Let's bring it up. And continue it. Yeah, I think that wants to be just on the outside. It just wants to live out there. That one didn't want to cross over. All right, we're in the middle right now. This is fine. All right, so let's bring another one of these puppies out here. This one is going to be like a rectangular shape. And let's see if we can get this one to cross over. Oh, I don't like that. We're losing it. There's not enough space in there. Well, let's fake it. No, let's see what happens if we just leave it there. It goes away. You know, like I said, the fire is actually fairly forgiving. It goes away. What I think happens here is that this shape needs to be represented in the frame before it. So maybe there's like a little bit of log that's burning right here by itself. So what I'm doing is just kind of seeing if that'll work by just drawing like a little bit that's just kind of hanging out there. And it's kind of feeding this thing. It's not doing much. It's like a little candle almost. All right, so we're not showing a really great crossover, but the fire is working. All right, the one thing I want to do here is I just want to make sure that this little bit doesn't look like it's pulsing. So I'm going to try to connect it as much as I can to that shape. And we're going to cheat that little bit too. Yeah, I got to be careful. That one looks like it's going backwards. And you can see that what I'm doing right now is I'm not even paying attention to what keyframe I'm on. I'm just making sure that the things that I'm drawing are animating straight ahead. All right. So anyone have any questions, comments, complaints, conundrums, criticisms? Looks like fire to me.
Yes.
To me, I think that there's a repair that I need to do right here, right in the very middle, because there's a couple of little bits that look like they're either stagnant, they're stopping, or they're going backwards. So let's identify what's going on right here. Keyframe to keyframe. So I'm following this little rectangle. This one. Let me follow each one. I'm going to follow this one, this little guy right here. Make sure that he's actually moving forward. Now I'm on my second drawing, third frame. We're going to see this shape that's moving up. Now we're on the fourth drawing, frame number 7. Let's follow this little moon shape. Yeah, that's moving okay. I doubt that I fixed it. There's still something that's sticking. Oh, there it is. This guy right here. Actually, I'm going to erase him. And I'm going to draw him in a new position with a new thing. All right, so I'm going to spend just a minute here talking about just augmenting this just with some embers. And so let's turn our layout's off already. Let's turn our background off. Let's go to our background layer and erase these little marks. Hey, oh, I'm on the wrong layer. On the background layer, actually with Toon Boom, you can just use your command key and circle all of them and delete them. Or you could just cut right through it. All right, so on our fire layer, let's just add a couple little embers for our plucky February 25th Friday morning. All right, so right now I think that this is pretty good. This looks like a pretty good just composition. I think that there's some lines down here that probably need to be fixed up, but it's still rough. We've got big, medium, and a couple of small shapes up here. Let's get some embers in here. We'll start on the first drawing. And let's just put like a little ember right here, just because that happens. Next drawing, ember. Next drawing, ember. Next drawing, ember. Up and up. And this one's crossing to the left and up. And this is really forgiving. Check it, make sure it's not going backwards. Start on the second drawing. Put an ember right here. Up, 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 up. Just do it one at a time so you don't lose track of where it is. And this one's going to the right. Play it just to check it. So good. So now we're just adding some details. Start on the third drawing, frame 5. What does it need? It needs maybe an ember out right here. Go to the next drawing, ember. Next drawing. Remember that little arc that we just erased, right? You're still using the same. All right, so one thing that you can do on top of this is that if you want, you can look at real fire and I think that all the stuff we have here is just kind of hand-drawn animation stuff, but you can add little pixie dusts in here. So let's do this on a separate layer in case we totally screw it up. And we just got one little minute here. So I'm just going to call this dust and add and close. And just like always, we'll pick a new, it's going to be the same family of color, but it's going to be the dust. And we already know the rules of pixie dust. So let's turn our onion skin on. And on the, let's start with the first drawing. Well, let's just draw some pixie dust. Make sure that it's random. Maybe a little hole. Next frame. Make sure they're not in the same place. You don't want any of these little, and don't draw a lot of it. Just draw a little bit. You don't want any of these to be in the same place. So just do a few of them. You can, if you want, have couple of them explode. You know, why not? So now we're on, oh, hold on a second. Hopefully I didn't screw this up. I was animating on ones right there. Let's just see if I didn't, hopefully I didn't screw this up. My intuition is that I didn't screw it up. All right, little pixie dust. Continue this out. Let's see what it looks like. No, it's fine, but let's do like a little exploding star, like right here. The trick here is going to be that unlike the pixie dust, this exploding star is it has to move up. So the danger is that you're not going to see it because it is moving up. So try to cheat the speed of it a little bit. And one more, just the tail end of the thing exploding. See if we can see it. You know, it's there. You might want to do one like here. So start on this frame and draw a 4-point star exploding. Let's say 5-point star. Next keyframe. I'm starting in the middle because you want the sharper ends of the explosion to be on the outside. Now it's in the way of that little piece right there, but we might get it to work. One more. Oh, it's gone. So we'd have to draw that or copy it and paste it. Let's see what it looks like. I don't know. It looks a little goofy. Yeah, I don't like it. Just stay with the embers. So I'm gonna go back here on my dust layer and just erase this. I don't. It was just an attempt. But I think that a little pixie dust will help. A little bit of pixie dust will help. So let's take one more look at it and then I'll cut you loose. I didn't erase all of it. It's still there. All right, so remember that you're doing this. You can do this as a standalone piece if you really want, but it should be part of the volcano. And if you're working in Toon Boom, you would take this and you would just say, hey, now I'm going to show you how to do this. And then I'm going to Command Z it. So for all of this fire, it's working, right? It's working, it's great. So let's go to our fire layer and say, reposition all drawings. And they're all selected. So I'm just going to take them, I'm going to move them over here, and I'm going to make it real big, and they're all moved. So that's the one big advantage of using Toon Boom is you can do that. And then you can copy and paste this whole line. And next week we can talk about copying and pasting that whole line of fire along a burning ridge. But then if you're copying and pasting these 16 frames, you can use them like Lego blocks and start in the middle, copy and paste so that they don't all time the same. It's a really great way to make it look like you were animating fire for weeks when it was only just a couple hours. But there you go, there's your fire. We use the same principle of the moving arcs. And I would like to see at least what we've got today. It doesn't have to be cleaned up for next week, but you should be thinking about what this fire is going to look like for your volcano project. And then we'll do smoke next week. Okay. All right, this is recorded. I'll have the thing up on YouTube soon, shortly. Okay, I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Billy.
Okay, bye.